Chapter 1. The Meat Stall. Mama Ife's stall stood at the edge of the Ogbalaka Junction, not far from the motor park. The sign above her corrugated roof was faded: Ife's Kitchen, fresh meat, fresh taste, painted in crooked red letters that had begun to peel from years of sun and smoke. Her cooking pot was a large, dented drum cut open and converted into a boiling cauldron. The broth inside was thick, dark, and bubbling, the scent of spices and blood mingling in the air like incense. People came from all over to eat her food. "Best pepper soup in the whole city," drivers would say. "She adds something different. You go chop, you no go forget," others claimed. But no one asked where she got her meat. It wasn't cow, it wasn't goat, and she always had plenty, too much, even when there was a shortage at the slaughterhouse. She lived alone. Her house was behind the stall, a narrow bungalow with rusted iron windows and a padlock the size of a man's fist. No children, no relatives, only whispers. Some said she had money buried under her floor. Others believed she was a witch or worse, a woman who knew how to disappear people. But no one ever said it out loud, because everyone feared Mama Ife. They didn't know why. They just did. Late one Thursday night, just after the rain had stopped and the streets were quiet, Mama Eve pulled a wheelbarrow from behind her house. Inside was a body, a man, mid-30s, still fresh. She had drugged him hours earlier at the bar, lured him in with drink and that slow, heavy laugh of hers. "Fine boy like you," she had said. "You'd a waste for this world. Come make I show you real enjoyment." He never made it out alive. She dragged the body into her backyard. She had a special shed, hidden behind cassava plants where no one ever entered. Inside, the tools hung like ornaments: cleavers, hooks, saw blades, buckets, and in the corner, a deep freezer humming like a lazy bee. She worked quickly, quietly, methodically. She was no longer just Mama Eve, the pepper soup seller. She was the butcher. Chapter 2. What the Rain Left Behind. Before she became Mama Eve, the butcher of Benin, she was just Ife Agodalo, a girl from the village of Iwu in Edo State. She had been born during the rainy season. Her mother bled too much during childbirth. Her father, a palm wine tapper, never forgave her for it. "You killed her," he used to mutter when he was drunk, tapping her skull with a bottle. "Womb thief." Ife grew up alone in the house, cleaning, cooking, and hiding bruises. She spoke little, watched much, and learned that people only respected fear, not kindness. One day when she was 17, her father disappeared. The villagers searched the bush for 3 days. They found only his machete near the river and a pool of blood. Some said it was thieves. Others whispered it was the girl. But there was no proof. No one ever saw her cry. After that, Ife moved to Benin City with nothing but a wrapper, a rusted pot, and the name Mama, a lie that made her seem older, wiser, less vulnerable. She started by frying akara near the market. The stall was small, but her eyes were always watching. She watched the drunkards, the thieves, the unwanted, the disposable people, those no one would look for. One night, during a blackout, a man tried to steal from her. He followed her home, thought she was weak. He was wrong. By morning, she had new meat in her pot and a secret that made her smile for the first time in years. That was the beginning. From then on, she perfected it. No one saw, no one suspected. She found men with no ID, no family. She learned where to cut, how to strip flesh, how to bleach bones. She became a supplier, not to butchers or restaurants, but to a new kind of market. A dark one, where human parts were bought with cash, curses, or political favors. And in this market, Mama Ife became a name people respected in silence. A woman who could deliver anything and for the right price. Chapter 3. The Man Who Asked Too Many Questions. It started with a young police officer named Inspector Chuka Obasi. Freshly transferred from Lagos, Chuka had sharp eyes and a sharper mind. Unlike the others at the station, he didn't take bribes. He didn't drink on duty. And he had a habit of looking too closely. One day he came to Ife's stall for pepper soup. She served him with her usual fake smile, wiping her hands on her apron. "New face," she said, sizing him up. "Just transferred," he replied, sipping the hot broth. People say this is the best spot in town. She chuckled. People say many things, but his eyes lingered on the meat in his bowl. There was something strange about the texture. Too soft. Not goat. Not beef. He didn't finish the meal. That night, he went back to the station and started digging. He looked into missing persons reports, not the high-profile ones, but the quiet disappearances. Street boys, drifters, market traders, bike men. Some were last seen around Ogbalaka Junction, and many were never found. He made a list. Eve's name kept floating to the top, always nearby, always present, but never suspected. 2 weeks later, he returned to her stall. This time, he brought a sample of the meat with him, wrapped in a napkin. He sent it to the university lab under a false name. The results came back 3 days later. Human tissue. Chuka didn't sleep that night. He didn't tell his colleagues either. He knew better. The force in Benin had its cracks, and if Aoife had connections, he might end up missing too. So he decided to watch her, gather evidence, and strike quietly. But Mama Aoife was watching too, and she had smelled the danger the moment he walked in. Late one evening, she stood in her backyard, sharpening her cleaver. The moonlight hit the blade just right, and she whispered, "You should have just eaten your soup, officer." Chapter 4. The Last Night of Chuka Obasi. Inspector Chuka Obasi had become obsessed. He barely slept, barely ate. His small flat in Usalu had become a web of notes, names, photos, all pointing back to Mama Aoife. Her quiet life didn't add up. Too clean, too quiet. But there was always blood behind silence, and he was going to prove it. He had already gotten the lab results. The meat was human. He knew he was on the edge of something big, something terrible. But what he didn't know was that Aoife already knew about him. That night, Chuka sat at his desk, the single ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead. He flipped through his notebook, where he had scrawled in bold ink, "She's harvesting them. I need a warrant." But he also knew, if he went through official channels, she'd disappear. Or worse, the station might tip her off. Too many officers owed her. Too many mouths were paid to stay shut. He made a decision. He'd go alone, search her property, take pictures, call in backup after. He tucked his phone in his back pocket, his pistol in his waistband, and stepped out into the humid Benin night. He never made it to the compound. At 12:47 a.m., someone knocked at his door. 3 knocks, soft, rhythmic. When he opened it, there was no one there. Just a black plastic bag on the floor. Inside was a piece of boiled meat, still warm, still steaming. And on top, a blood-stained police ID card, his own. They found the door wide open the next morning. Chuka was gone. No blood, no sign of a struggle, only his badge nailed to the back wall of the station toilet. The officers said nothing. No one filed a report. Because in Benin, when the dust swallows someone, you don't ask why. You pray you're not next. At her stall, Mama Aoife served pepper soup like any other morning. Someone asked, "Where'd that young officer day?" She smiled with her eyes only. Maybe he'd travel. And she stirred the pot, slow, deliberate, knowing she'd won this round. Chapter 5. The Girl with the Camera. The first real problem didn't come from the police or the streets. It came from a young woman named Adaora Nwachukwu, a final-year student at the University of Benin. She was tall, bold, and unafraid, the kind of girl who looked people in the eyes when they tried to lie. She was working on a final project for her journalism degree, Invisible Lives, the Forgotten Missing of Edo State. At first, it was just interviews, family members, market traders, friends who had seen loved ones vanish without a trace. But the same name kept coming up in whispers. Efe, Mama Efe, that woman near the junction. Adaora was curious, so she went to eat there. It was a hot afternoon when she first met her. The air was thick with the smell of pepper, smoke, and blood. Mama Aoife stood behind her counter, arms folded, eyes narrow. She could tell the girl was not there for food. "Journalist," Aoife said, almost spitting the word. "You people like to stir dust." Adaora smiled. "Dust doesn't move unless something walks through it." Aoife's eyes didn't blink. She poured soup into a bowl and shoved it forward. "Eat." Adaora hesitated, then took a single spoonful, enough to pretend, not enough to trust. Behind her back, she had already slipped a tiny spy camera into her necklace. It recorded video and sound. She wasn't here to eat. She was here to watch. That night, she reviewed the footage on her laptop. She zoomed in on a metal tray in the corner of the stall, the meat waiting to be cooked. She paused, leaned closer. A human finger. No mistaking it. Bone structure, nail, slight discoloration. Her breath caught in her throat. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's real. She's really—" She didn't finish the sentence, because outside her window, in the darkness, someone was watching. Chapter 6. The Eye of the Hunter. Adaora didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Not after what she'd seen in the footage. That finger, its discolored nail, the slight twist in the knuckle. It wasn't cow, goat, or bushmeat. It was human. She paced her room, heart pounding. She had proof, real evidence, but it wasn't enough. She needed more. Not rumors, not suspicions. She needed to see where the meat was being stored, how it was prepared, and, most of all, where the bodies went. That meant going back. The next day, she returned to the stall. She wore a scarf over her head and large sunglasses. She pretended to be just another customer. "Pepper soup," she said softly. "Takeaway." Ife squinted at her. She knew faces even under disguise. Still, she handed Adaora the hot nylon bag without a word. But her eyes followed her. All the way to the gate. That night, Adaora did what she'd promised herself she wouldn't do. She went to Ife's compound. Alone. Armed with a flashlight, a second hidden camera, and pepper spray, she crept through the narrow alleys behind the woman's house. Her heart thundered in her ears. Chickens scattered. Something growled in the distance. She found a low fence, easily climbed. She landed in the backyard, surrounded by tall cassava bushes and the faint hum of a generator. Then she saw it. A shed. Corrugated metal, locked with a massive padlock. Blood stains trailed toward the door. She lifted her phone, hit record, and moved closer. She didn't see the figure standing in the shadows, watching her, breathing quietly, holding a machete. Suddenly, the shed door creaked open. Adaora gasped and backed away, too late. A hand clamped over her mouth, another around her waist, and then darkness. When she woke up, the air was thick with the smell of salt, blood, and smoke. She was tied to a wooden chair in a concrete room. Bare light bulb above. Butcher tools on the wall. Mama Ife sat across from her eyes cold and calm. "You want story, eh?" Ife said softly. "You go here am now." Chapter 7. The Rules of Blood. The room smelled like death. Not just rot, but the sharp, coppery scent of fresh blood and the sweat of secrets too old to speak. Adaora struggled against the ropes, her breathing shallow, eyes wide. But Mama Ife just sat there, her thick arms resting on her lap, calm as a priest in confession. "You want to know my story?" she said, voice low, steady. "You think say you fit right book about me, Abi?" Adaora didn't answer. Ife leaned forward. "Let me help you, small girl. Let me give you the real headline." She stood and walked slowly to a metal shelf in the corner. There were jars, dozens, filled with strange shapes, floating in murky fluid, fingers, eyes, even a small jawbone. Adaora gagged. "You see all this?" Eve said. "This is not madness. This is business." She lit a cigarette and exhaled toward the ceiling. "You know how many politicians come to me? How many big men they beg me for parts, for protection, for power, for money?" She turned slowly. "They say bring me a woman's tongue, one that doesn't lie." She smiled darkly. "I give them. They say bring me the heart of a faithful man. Rare commodity, but still." She tapped her chest. "I deliver." Adaura's voice cracked. You kill for rituals?" Efe laughed, not harshly, almost pityingly. "I kill because the world pays more for blood than it does for bread, and I just follow the rules." Adaora struggled harder. "You won't get away with this." Ife knelt beside her, face close. "But I already have. For years." Her breath was hot against Adaora's cheek. "Until you, with your camera and your questions. You crossed into a place where truth has a price. She stood again, walked to the table, picked up a thin silver blade. Adaora's heart pounded. This was it. But Aoife didn't cut her. She sliced the ropes. "You want a story?" she said. "Then survive it." She stepped aside and opened the door. Behind it was the exit, the shed's back gate. Adaora stumbled up, confused, trembling. "Go," Aoife said. "Run." Adaora didn't hesitate. She bolted into the darkness. Aoife stood in the doorway, watching her disappear into the night, and whispered, "No one ever believes the girl who lives." Chapter 8. The Girl Who Lived. Adaora ran. Her legs burned with the effort, her heart drumming in her chest. She could hear the night, the faint sounds of traffic in the distance, the hum of a generator somewhere in the neighborhood. But none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was getting away. She hadn't expected Aoife to let her go, but she had. For a moment, Adaora wondered if she had been dreaming all of it. The shed, the bodies, the jars. But as she stumbled through the streets, the weight of the truth settled over her. She had seen too much. She knew too much. Adaora made it to the university campus and collapsed by the security gate, gasping for air. Her phone was still in her bag. The camera, the footage, it was all she had. With shaking hands, she unlocked her phone. The footage was still there, raw, unedited. Her next move was clear. She called her best friend, Chijioke, who was studying political science. "Chijioke," she panted, "I need your help. I have something you won't believe, but you need to help me spread it." Chijioke picked up, groggy. "Adaora, what's—" "I need you to go to a safe place. I'm sending you something on Google Drive. Don't open it yet. Do not let anyone see it, not even the police." His voice was confused. "Ada, what's going on?" "Just trust me, Chijioke. I'll explain later. But if you see anything, run. Don't ask questions." She hung up before he could respond and quickly uploaded the footage to a private folder. At dawn, the story was already spreading. Adaora had left the safety of the university and gone to the city center. A risky move, but she needed to talk to someone. Her phone buzzed as soon as she entered the crowded market. It was Chijioke. "Adaora, you need to come back. Now. They know. They're looking for you." "What do you mean?" She gripped the phone tightly. "Just get back here. You're not safe." Mama Aoife knew. Adaora wasn't sure how, but she knew the woman would be watching. The game had changed. As Adaora made her way back to the university, she realized something. She wasn't the only one who had been watching. Chapter 9. The Client Who Came to Collect. The air was heavy with tension in Benin City. Mama Aoife's network had always been solid, her clients loyal. But with Adaora's footage now circulating and whispers growing louder in the market, cracks were beginning to show. People who once feared her were starting to question her, to look for another source. The first sign of trouble came when General Sani Odajie, a high-ranking military officer, called her late at night. The general was a frequent customer, always ordering specials. He had become one of her most reliable patrons, requesting parts of high-ranking officials, military contractors, or anyone with power. For him, it was a game, a way to manipulate the government, to keep his own hands clean while playing dirty. But tonight his tone was different. "Aoife," his voice crackled through the phone, low and unsteady. "I need to talk." Her heart skipped. The general was never anxious. "Talk about what, my friend?" she replied, keeping her tone calm. She was used to handling the big players. "I need to see you in person. It's urgent." A wave of dread washed over her. She could feel it in his voice. Mama Aoife met him in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The place smelled of rust and decay, far from the luxury she was used to. It wasn't a location for a business deal. It was a trap. The general was pacing when she arrived. His usually crisp military uniform was rumpled, his face drawn tight with fear. "What's going on, General?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "You look like you've seen a ghost." He stopped pacing, his eyes locking onto hers. "You don't get it, do you, Aoife? This is bigger than us." Mama Aoife's eyes flicked over to the men he had brought. 3 armed soldiers. They were positioned strategically, but she had already assessed the room. "I've been hearing rumors about you, about your business," the general continued, his voice tight. "And I've seen things I shouldn't have. People are talking, Eve. People who are starting to ask questions about where the bodies are going, what the meat really is." She clenched her jaw but kept her expression neutral. "General, you know the price for treason. You've been a loyal customer, but if you're starting to doubt—" "I'm not doubting, Eve," he interrupted. "I'm saying people know I can't protect you anymore." Effie took a step forward, her eyes flashing with deadly intent. "What are you suggesting?" He lowered his voice. "I'm suggesting you either get out of this business, or I'll make sure every man who's ever touched your goods ends up in a grave. I can bury you too. Make sure it's quick and no one knows. Your body can disappear like all the others." For a split second, there was silence. Then, as fast as lightning, Eve's hand shot out. The machete had been hidden in her sleeve. The blade flashed once, cutting through the general's neck. Blood poured out in a thick stream, and before his men could react, she had already turned the gun on them. 3 shots, 3 men down. In less than 30 seconds, the room was silent. F stood over the bodies, breathing slowly, methodically. "General Sani," she said to the lifeless man on the ground, her voice smooth as silk. "You should have understood one thing." She crouched down, wiping the blood from her blade. "There's no getting out, not when you've crossed this line." The next morning, the news hit the streets. General Sani Odigi was found dead in his car, his throat slit, with no witnesses and no sign of struggle. But Mama Ife knew. It was only a matter of time before the rumors reached the wrong ears. She had made her statement, but Adaora's survival was still a problem. Adaora had to be silenced, or the entire empire would crumble. Chapter 10. The Hunt Begins. It was dawn when Mama Ife received the message. It was simple. Just 3 words, written in bold red on her encrypted phone. She's still alive. Adaora had managed to escape, yes. But now, she was a threat. And threats had to be eliminated. Eve had seen too much go wrong already. General Sani was dead, his soldiers scattered like ashes in the wind. It was all falling apart too fast. But there was still one thing she could control: Adaora. Adaora sat in her room, the university campus seeming too quiet, too small for her now. She had barely slept, but she couldn't afford to rest. The footage was still on her laptop, but it wasn't enough. No one believed her. Everyone thought she was just another conspiracy theorist. Until the truth came out. She called Chijioke again. "They know, Chijioke. Ife knows I'm still alive." "I can't help you anymore." His voice was strained, like he was distant. "They've been looking for you. The police, the military. Everyone's been warned to stay away." She felt her stomach twist. Chijioke wasn't just scared, he was warned. "I need to finish this," Adaora said, her voice hardening. "I need to make them listen." Ife's footsteps were silent in the night as she slipped past the shadows of the campus. She had sent 2 men ahead to flush Adaora out, but they were taking their time. Her enemies always took their time. The game had changed. The girl who once feared for her life now knew the stakes. Adaora was on her own. That would be her last mistake. Adaora sat in the library, eyes scanning the bookshelves. She wasn't looking for a book. She was looking for an exit plan. Suddenly, the door creaked open behind her. She spun around. Eve stood there. The 2 women locked eyes. The air thickened with the weight of years of darkness, blood, and whispered deals. "You shouldn't have kept digging," Ife said, her voice smooth, almost soothing. Adaora's heart raced, but she didn't let the fear show. "You don't scare me anymore, Ife." Ife smiled. "I never wanted to scare you. I wanted to use you." She stepped forward, but Adaora stood her ground. "I won't let you get away with this. I'll make sure the world knows what you've done." "You think you can stop me?" Eve's eyes narrowed. "I've been playing this game for years, girl. You're just a pawn." Adaora's breath caught. "Then why am I still here?" Without warning, Eve lunged. The next few moments were a blur. Adaora twisted out of the way, but not fast enough. The edge of Ife's blade nicked her shoulder. Pain shot through her arm, but Adaora didn't scream. She gritted her teeth, her vision going black from the blood loss. Then she did the one thing she could. She grabbed the first thing she could find, a fire extinguisher sitting in the corner. With all her strength, Adaora swung it at Ife's face. The woman stumbled back, her hand flying to her nose. Adaora didn't wait. She bolted toward the door. Ife stood, wiping blood from her mouth, and laughed softly. "You're not going anywhere." Adaora didn't have time to think. She was too close now. To the truth. To the end. She dashed into the alley behind the library, adrenaline carrying her farther, faster than she thought possible. She could hear Ife behind her. She was coming. There was no escaping her. But Adaora was ready. As Ife turned the corner, Adaora hurled her phone toward the nearby trash bin. It was the last move she could make. The video, the footage, everything. It was all out in the open now. The world was watching. Ife stopped. And then she smiled. Epilogue. The dust settles. Months passed. Adaora's face became known across the country. The footage of Ife's operation, the bodies, the rituals, went viral. But the real story was much more complicated. Ife was never caught. In fact, many believed she had never been real at all. Some say Ife was never truly alive. She was a myth, an ancient shadow whispered about by those who lived in the dust. But there are others, those who still hear her name on the lips of politicians and military men. Because, as the saying goes, the dust always whispers, and it never forgets. The end. The end, please like and subscribe.